Want to watch football without the restrictions of blackouts or cable? Check out expressvpn.com to help you get access to all the live games. Sign up today using the link in the description to get 3 free months. Yo to Bolt fam, it's the director. Chargers fans. Woo! Okay, I'm excited about this one. A little bit nervous. It's always a bit gut-wrenching, but I think one of my favorite videos of the season to do every single year. We're going to drop it today. It's my selfish Chargers mock draft for the 2024 season. Because, yeah, we've gone through a ton of different scenarios, right? Anything could happen draft day. You want to throw a wide enough net to kind of cover everything. But you guys still ask me something very consistently, a question I get all the time. Director, where do your loyalties lie? What do you want to see happen in the NFL draft? If it were up to you and you were the GM, what is it you're doing on draft night? So today we're going to answer some questions. Throw down some flags, right? Put some opinions down in concrete and in stone for the director in my first 7-round mock draft of the 2024 season. Normally what we like to do on this channel is do 3 mock drafts, A, B, and C, and then you guys can talk amongst yourselves in the chat about which ones you love. This time we're just going to do 2. We're going to do mock draft A and mock draft B, because there are a couple of different scenarios I think are very likely that could go down for the Chargers. And I have my preferences on what could happen in both of those. If I were in control, what I would be doing in both of those situations. So before we do get started, because it should be a pretty fun one, shout out to the sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. Use code DIRECTOR to match your first deposit up to $100. Get in on the action. It's a great way to support the channel and have some fun along the way. Newcomers, definitely check out the special on-screen Anthony Edwards for the win. Before we do kickoff, hit us up with a like and sub if you do enjoy this Chargers content. The small amount of time you guys take to hit the like, sub, and bell notification helps me out a lot. Let's get into this massacre. Lights, camera, action. My selfish mock draft for the 2024 season. If I were in control of the Chargers. And yes, a lot of different things can happen. You guys definitely make sure to check out all the mock drafts we've been throwing down on this channel. There's pretty much a scenario for everything at this point. This may be one of my last mock drafts, as it is coming up this weekend. Super exciting. But I wanted you guys to let you know where my thoughts are, what my emotions are on some of these selections, and what I would ultimately do if I were in charge. So let's go ahead and kick things off here. Mock draft A. And this one, there's a little bit of explanation behind it, but I'm going to go ahead and say, again, this is 1 of 2, only A and B this week. This is probably where a lot of people's opinions will be the same here, because it is very, very obvious to a lot of fans out there. If Marvin Harrison Jr. is on the board, round 1, pick number 5, the Chargers, in my opinion, need to stick and pick and take this generational talent at wide receiver. But a little explanation is required here, because this first mock draft, it does carry a bit of an asterisk next to it in terms of the first pick in round 5. When we met with all of the other Chargers YouTubers a few weeks ago, one of the first things I did was ask everybody around the table, are you trading down, you picking, you trading down, you picking? And it was kind of interesting to see everybody's reactions there. Me personally, if I'm in charge, I'm probably sticking and picking if, you know, one of these guys at wide receiver is still there. And that's kind of the point I'm trying to make here. This also applies to Malik Neighbors for me. You can throw Roma Dunze in there if you'd wish. I would be very excited about that as well. But either way, I want to stick and pick one of these guys. Marvin Harrison, in my gut feeling, is telling me that he's going to be taken before us via the Arizona Cardinals. If I'm in charge, I think I'm still sticking and picking and going with Malik Neighbors, especially if the trade package isn't quite as enticing as I was hoping it would be for a trade down. But that's how strongly I feel about both these talents. If Marvin Harrison Jr. is there, it's very easy for me. If Malik Neighbors is there, Marvin Harrison is not, it's still probably Malik Neighbors for me, because both of these guys bring tremendous ceilings to our passing game all of a sudden. Let's go ahead and sit and assume that Marvin Harrison falls to the Chargers at 5, which is also pretty likely. This really does help complete the Chargers offense in a way that not a lot of other players would. And I understand you want to go offensive line for certain reasons. You want to go tight end for certain reasons. But quite ultimately, the Chargers still need to be a respected team at wide receiver through the pass game more specifically. And right now, the Chargers, with the weapons we have on the field, they're going to need a lot more help than that. And I think Marvin Harrison brings a very instant respect to what the Chargers can bring through the passing game that's going to make defenses back off just a little bit. And it also helps us capitalize on what we're trying to create with the run game. If the Chargers create a lot of opportunity for play action, RPOs, et cetera, with a strong run game, but our receivers aren't up to the task, it could be viewed as a waste of opportunity when the time comes for Quentin Johnson, who I really hope does bounce back this season. But if he doesn't, that play action that's been set up by the run all this time, if it results in a drop, I don't know how devastating that's going to be to our game script. So for a lot of those reasons, and above all else, the talent of these guys, I'm going to go Marvin Harrison Jr. in mock draft A as my preferred pick. And again, you can kind of swap these guys out. I'm sticking and picking for either one of these dudes in very many situations. But in this instance, we're going to go with Marvin Harrison Jr., who at this point kind of feels like a 30-70 chance coming to the Chargers at pick 5, which is actually quite a lot more than I thought it would be just a couple of months ago when the Chargers were solidified at pick number 5 with the Cardinals right before. Okay. So there it goes, mock draft A. We're starting things off with an obvious bang. Marvin Harrison Jr., wide receiver, Ohio State. Perhaps the next Larry Fitzgerald. Now, to follow up, I think you guys understand where my stance is on this. A lot of people who want the Chargers to trade down are kind of throwing that as a first-round option only. I'm one of those guys that loves trading down in the second round because there's going to be a lot of good talent falling into the second round because of just how saturated this class is in talent. And that's going to give a lot of opportunity for the Chargers to A, have a really solid option in front of them at pick number 37, or B, that option could be more enticing to other teams to want to trade up. And that gives the Chargers some opportunity to get some more draft capital, as well as still get a pretty nice player in the second round. In this instance, I got the Houston Texans trading up with the Chargers while also supplying an extra 4th-round pick to the Bolts. We still get our 2nd-round pick just a few picks later. What would that be, like 5 picks later? I think that's a pretty great value, and it's something that I hope the Chargers exercise on day 2 if they haven't traded down in day 1. Now, with these picks, the Chargers, I would say, are going to be pretty good position in round 2, pick number 2 or pick number 42 via the Houston Texans to go out and get Mike Sainristil still. And this is because I think Sainristil still, this is kind of around the range I see him going anyway. He's been climbing and climbing and climbing. I remember when we first started these mock drafts, he was more of like a 3rd round, maybe even like early 4th rounder. But his talent really has been coming to the surface for a lot of scouts, a lot of NFL talking heads, dudes in the media, and then, of course, fans like you and I really started to pay attention to what he brings to a defense, and specifically a defense like the Los Angeles Chargers. And that's why I feel so strongly in selecting him in the 2nd round because of what his impact would bring immediately. This isn't a 2nd round, okay, you know, he's going to be a guy we develop. Hopefully he hits. We're going to have to wait and see. No, this is a guy that I see day 1, week 1, going out there and making a play and proving that he's going to be out here running with the best of them. And yes, he's going to be best utilized in the slot. Sure, he's going to be, you know, the one of the next nickelbacks, but I do feel like he's going to be not too bad on the outside either. But most importantly, he brings the oomph, the physicality, the scheme fit for Jesse Minter, which is a very obvious fit here in this scenario. It feels like a very important transitional player for this team. The Chargers are going to be undergoing a pretty dramatic shift this season, creating a defense in the likeliness of the Ravens, of course the Michigan Wolverines. It's going to take some key players at key position with pretty good talent to make that transition as seamless as possible. And I believe Sainristil is one of those guys that can bring that kind of impact to the Chargers, even in their very first season under Jesse Minter's control. Okay, so Mike Sainristil, very physical player, great athlete in terms of his speed and agility and burst and explosion. The dude is awesome all around, and I think he's going to bring a lot to any defense that he's drafted by. You got to put the Chargers up there as one of those preferred destinations for him, as well as for the Chargers in terms of talent. Okay, let's move on to round 3, where the Chargers have another Michigan alumni in their sights, in their crosshairs, to pull the trigger on and bring into the fold for Jesse Minter and Jim Harbaugh. Because, again, we've seen a lot of movement on the offense via free agency preseason to help the offense better create a form that is what Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman want. Okay, that transition has seen a little bit more turnover via players. The defense, I think, is going to be relying on a lot of young talent. Mike Sainristil still is a great start in the second round. Junior Colson, to me, and I don't even know if he'll be available at 69. If not, he's a trade-up kind of candidate for me as well. I wouldn't mind the Chargers maybe burning one of those fourth-round picks to go up and get Junior Colson, because like I said with Mike Sainristil, this is kind of my dude for the Chargers defense. Like, both of those guys coming in. You got the new, nickel king over there. You've got this guy in Junior Colson who's going to be more or less a leader for this defense. Him and Derwin James, I'm sure, going to work very closely together. But that unit together is super important to bring to the Chargers defense. Linebacker is one of those positions for Jesse Minter, even for the Ravens, that is so important to the execution of their defense that I think the Chargers need to invest in it this season. I really do. And there's a couple of really good guys that I love. Peyton Wilson, Edgerrin Cooper, Junior Colson, probably my preferred guy, who might be the most likely to be found in the third round. These are the dudes that I think can shape the Chargers' physicality and culture on defense. Junior Colson's a great leader. He's very smart. He's great in coverage. He's great versus the run. I just feel like him and Jesse Minter and Derwin James, those dudes are going to make a big impact. Just think about the damage that Roquan Smith and Kyle Hamilton have done in Baltimore. I would expect similar results down the road with Derwin James and Junior Colson. And they are very big parts. If you guys watch the Ravens defense, Roquan and Hamilton are a huge reason why that defense works. And that's why I want a guy like Colson. That's why I want a guy like Edgerrin Cooper. That's why I want a guy like Peyton Wilson, because those guys can really control the middle of the field better than almost anybody you're going to find in the NFL draft this year. All right. So here you go. Junior Colson in round 3 at pick 69. Feeling pretty good about the defense all of a sudden. We're bringing in those Michigan guys to start completing that vision for Jesse Minter. Let's move on here. In round 4, pick 105. We're going to take a swing here, dudes. T'Vondre Sweat, defensive lineman out of Texas. The big man at nose tackle that brings some of the craziest freaking nature, strength and size, and just the ability to play nose tackle as good as anybody in the NFL. The big issue, and the only reason why he's been available so often in the 4th round, is because there was a character issue, right? I think it was an arrest. I can't give you guys the certain details on that, but I can tell you this is the kind of player that the Chargers in past seasons would veer away from. And maybe it's something that stays within the organization as part of our culture, right? Like, we don't want any of those red flags. It's something, big enough to sheer us away from them entirely, okay? I don't know if that's going to be the same Chargers, because there's two different ways of looking at this. Yes, Sweat is a risk. All the legality part of it and all that, like, it's something you have to weigh in, because it could be something that affects his professional career as well as, where he's drafted. Is his availability in question because of that? I don't know. But is this a team that completely ignores those red flags? Or are they a team that steps up to the challenge in helping develop these young men? Because, yes, these are young guys that need character development as much as they need physical and football development. I see the Chargers as maybe kind of edging that a little bit more than they used to in the past. And when you see a value like T'Vondre Sweat in the 4th round, it has my attention. And it makes me wonder what this new regime of Chargers is going to do in terms of their values with players like this. And it doesn't excuse what he's done. It doesn't excuse what, my views and moral perspective of his actions. I think that he needs to in a lot of ways, make up for that as a person. But as a football player, you can grow as a player as well as a person at the same time if you're put in the right situation. And it just feels like Jim Harbaugh could be that guy. Okay? Football does wonders for youth, and I think Jim Harbaugh has done that plenty of times in his time in Michigan, even in the Niners, et cetera, et cetera. Okay? So we'll wait and see. This might be a guy they completely ignore, but I do think the door is kind of open for the Chargers to change that perspective a little bit under this new leadership. We'll have to wait and see. But that would be a guy I would definitely take in the 4th round. Now, the Chargers, who do have 2 4th-round picks, and in this situation, 3 4th-round picks because of the trade down with the Houston Texans, are going to have a few more selections here. And in round 4, pick 110 via the Chicago Bears, I'm definitely taking a swing on this guy, Cedric Van Pran, center out of Georgia. You guys want a center that fits the new mold of the Los Angeles Chargers. You guys want a center and a leader that brings a lot of the same traits. We won't say the same traits as Corey Lindsey. He's one of the best to ever do it, but this dude's very smart. He's a very, very big presence on that line, and quite honestly, his talent translates beautifully to what we need in a run-heavy offense. We'll say run-balance offense. He's going to be a force in the middle. And right now, Bradley Bozeman offers him a little bit of chance to develop there. He's a fourth-round selection for a reason, but I do feel like Cedric Van Pran could be a starter a lot sooner than a lot of dudes in the NFL draft around this range. I think the dude's going to be awesome in the NFL, and he would be a great fit with the Chargers, who will be looking at that center position very, very soon, if not this season in training camp. So I like Cedric Van Pran a lot. He's one of my favorite targets in the fourth round. You can convince me to take him at 105, even if Devondre Sweat wasn't there. You can convince me he's more of a late second-round pick, sure, but I think the Chargers have a great shot at him in the third. I think they have a great shot at him in the fourth, and that's definitely a guy I'm targeting there, okay? Now, to round out round 4, I got another trench guy for the Chargers, and Matt Gonsalves, offensive lineman, should say tackle out of Pittsburgh. You guys have seen me draft this guy a million times. It's because I love the value in the fourth round. If it weren't, and again, the biggest reason why he's even here is an ACL, and that's going to turn a lot of people off of it. However, the Chargers situation is perfect for Gonsalves, because if it weren't for that ACL, this dude, to me, is easily a late second, early third round pick. The guy's a great talent, and he's a huge system and scheme fit for Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman. The guy's big. The guy's powerful. He's the right tackle of the future. And the reason the situation is so perfect is because we've got Trey Pipkins there to hold down the fort, play as our starter this season. Gonsalves can be more of a luxury swing if we have to think about it that way, a developmental guy at right tackle. But if he were healthy, I wouldn't have any problem starting him week 1, feeling very good about our run game, our run blocking, our pass pros there from Matt Gonsalves. The fact that we have a little bit of time to give him some extra, healing there, extra time to smooth his way into the NFL is just a huge plus for the Chargers and Matt Gonsalves, which is why in very many mock drafts, I am taking him in round 4, sometimes at pick 105, and not even looking back, because I think he is the right tackle of the future, and that doesn't put to waste what we have in Trey Pipkins either, who's being paid $9 million this season. All right? Next up, the Chargers. That was pick number 123, by the way, via Houston. Let's move into the 5th round. The Chargers in round 5 are going to pick up Will Shipley, running back out of Clemson. Now, there's a couple of running backs that I've seen consistently available in the 5th round that I love. Shipley is there more of a coin flip, like a 50-50. If he's there, I'm taking him instantly. I see guys like Trey Benson there sometimes. There's other talents that I like around Ray Davis, etc. But I think in the value of round 5, after we've loaded up the trenches a little bit in rounds 3 to 4, this is where I'm kind of looking at, okay, maybe running backs on the table. Because if you guys will recall, the Chargers, we did go out and get Gus Edwards. We did go out and get J.K. Dobbins. We brought in the Baltimore guys into our system to kind of help build something here. And that tells me maybe we're not going to invest too high in running back in the 2024 NFL draft, but I don't know if it's completely off the table for me quite yet. Will Shipley brings great insurance for J.K. Dobbins. He brings a great change of pace at running back that complements Gus Edwards beautifully. Shipley's got some of the best speed, some of the best hands, receiving ability, outside, big playability that you're going to find at the running back position for the Chargers. And that trio or whatever, at this point, it would be Edwards, Dobbins, Shipley, and Simmons. I think all of those guys are definitely very, very well-rounded in terms of what the Chargers need at running back, because this is going to be a very, very big part of the offense this year. All right? So let's take a look at running back Will Shipley. If he's there, that's a really, really good option there. Spiller, I always say Isaiah Spiller at running back 4. Feel very, very good about that, and especially with the value. You got to take value, big value wherever you can find it. All right, let's move on to round 6 here. My first 7-round mock draft, which is pretty exciting. In round 6, I got the Chargers taking Josh Newton, who I've seen floating around round 6 and 7 quite a bit. A dude that I like quite a bit. Cornerback out of TCU. Now, the Chargers, at this point, have already taken Mike Sainristil, right? Early, in the 2nd round. I still think we need a bit of depth out here. We need a guy that can maybe play a little bit on the outside. And Josh Newton is a perfect kind of talent in the late rounds to take a swing on. Kind of reminds me what the Chargers were kind of doing with, Dean Leonard. I feel like Josh Newton out here brings that quickness, smoothness as a defender. He's great in press coverage, but most importantly to me, brings the physicality that Jesse Minter would be looking for in his corners. And again, I would view this as our top guys, especially with Mike Davis out now. You know, you got Asante Samuel Jr. as the 1. Certainly you would have Mike Sanders still as the 2/slot guy. You would need a 3 guy to come in and be that outside corner a little bit more. Jasir Taylor, more of a nickel guy. Dean Leonard, more of a depth guy. Maybe you have Dean and Josh Newton get some competition to see who plays outside, you know, unless they feel very good about Sanders still in those situations. So I think Josh Newton's a great value in the 6th round, and he brings a lot of the traits the Chargers are looking for from a defender at corner. All right. Next up, round 7. We have 2 selections here. The first one being a regular selection, their second one being a compensatory pick. Round 7, our first pick at 225, I'm taking A.J. Barner, tight end out of Michigan. So in this mock draft, we got 3 Michigan guys so far going to the Chargers that I think are going to make a pretty big impact. And yes, even 7th rounders can be a big impact for your squad. Okay, and I think A.J. Barner is a great example of that. Certainly has some potential as a receiver, but we know what he brings in terms of a blocker to the NFL. And that's why, to me, A.J. Barner is a pretty easy selection for me in later rounds. The Chargers, I don't think they're done at tight end, but this is the sort of range I think they're looking for. We have Will Dissly now. We have Hayden Hurst. A.J. Barner's a very safe pick in the later rounds to be, okay, this is our blocker past, you know, Will Dissly. This is going to be the guy of the future. And even now, the Chargers are going to be wanting to run, you know, 3, maybe 4 tight end sets where he would fit in beautifully. So A.J. Barner, to me, very easy selection there. And it's one that I think is a very safe pick for the Chargers in the later rounds. And then finally, our last pick in this draft, a guy that I think has a bit of upside here is Dylan McMahon. Interior offensive lineman. If I were correct in remembering, this dude was a center at North Carolina, but there was a bit of versatility there in terms of what he can bring at guard. It's a guy that I think the Chargers can take a late round flyer on, feel good about their depth all of a sudden, and has a little bit of competition to bring to camp as well. So that's going to round out my mock draft A for the Chargers. And it's one where, honestly, if it turns out that way, I would just be so ecstatic, so excited for the Bolts, and especially what Marvin Harrison Jr. would bring to the offense. All right, so there was your mock draft A. Let's go ahead and move into mock draft B, which is a bit of a different scenario. Okay, you guys looked at Marvin Harrison, Malik Neighbors as kind of like the highlight of that first mock draft. The second mock draft actually reflects a lot of versatility in what we're seeing throughout the league. The Chargers are being targeted as a premium trade up, you know, destination for a lot of different teams, and it's one where I think I'm very on board for it if the compensation is appropriate. And it's something that Joe Ortiz said himself in a presser not too long ago. We don't want a fair trade, right? These are some big players that we'd be giving up on if we were to move down, including Malik Neighbors, who would most likely be the guy that we pass up on if we do trade down. But if the compensation is appropriate, then I feel very good about it. And some are saying that it could be even more than this, which of course I would be all over that. In this trade down scenario for the Chargers, it's one that we've seen before. The Chargers pick up 2 first-rounders this year and a 3rd next season. Some people have gone crazy and said it could be as much as another 1st next season. That is the power of the Chargers draft position this year. And if it's anything more than a 3rd for 2025, I'm pulling the trigger on this. And even though it's tough for me to give up, or not even give up, but, you know, think of a different scenario other than Malik Neighbors, who would most likely be still available there, the value here is just way too much. You're talking an astronomical amount of value for the Chargers in this trade down, who are still going to get some very good players in this draft, even if their name isn't Malik Neighbors. Okay? So in this situation, in this scenario, draft B, we're starting it off with a trade. And again, I'm in full control here. This is what I want to see happen. I'm going to be basing off a lot of different mock drafts that I've done throughout the entire season on who could be available at pick number 11 now for the Chargers. So in round 1, where after the Chargers traded down, pick 11, I'm going Brock Bowers. And I'm not apologizing for it anymore. This is my dude, man. If he's there at 11, which, again, I don't know if it's so much a coin flip. I think there is a close, like 50-50 shot that he's there. I think there's more than likely that there's a pretty good shot that he's there at 11. If there are other teams trading up for quarterback and offensive line, et cetera, I think there's a pretty decent shot that Brock Bowers makes it to 11 for the Chargers. Sure, I would feel very good about, Talisa Fuanga. Like, I'd be very happy with that. But this is my dude at 11. I want a big playmaker for the Chargers. And Other than Neighbors and Adunze and Harrison, after that, it's Brock Bowers for me. This would be a hugely, hugely powerful weapon for Justin Herbert in a system where Brock Bowers would fit beautifully. And Bowers, who isn't your prototypical tight end, is going to be able to do a lot more than some of these other guys at the same position in the NFL. Line him up wide, line him up at the slot. His speed, his aggressiveness and brutality after the catch, it's unheard of. And it stands out versus all of the other tight ends I've ever seen in the NFL draft. Kyle Pitts was pretty close to it. He had a great rookie season. But I think Brock Bowers stands above even him, which is pretty crazy to say. Tight end kind of gets a rap for being that position that needs a few seasons before they can make any sort of impact. And it's true. It's very true. But Bowers is that special of a prospect that I think in year one, minimum, in my opinion, you're getting 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns. Minimum. That's just me. That's a lot to ask of this young man. That's a lot to ask of any rookie, especially at tight end. But it just feels like that's the kind of player he is. And his ceiling could be bonkers, like 1,200 yards, 12 touchdowns, who knows, with Brock Bowers. But this could be the centerpiece of our passing attack in year one with Brock Bowers and Justin Herbert. And what he adds as a blocker as well is hugely, hugely valuable. So as I said very many months ago in some of my earlier mock drafts where I'm taking Brock Bowers at 5, a lot of it still stems for me. This is a very special player, one that I would feel so confident in if the Chargers were able to get him in the first round. Again, if we miss on him, there's other guys that I'm very excited about, especially on offensive line, but there's a good shot of Bowers being there at 11. He's my guy. I would pass up on some talent for him. Some people would take Quinion Mitchell in front of him or, one of the premium tackles. I'm taking Brock Bowers for this offense. He would be so hugely valuable to this team for very, very many years. All right. Next up, second pick in the first round. Very easy for me. I'm taking one of the premium corners. Guys like Nate Wiggins, guys like DeJean. These are dudes that I feel very confident in. Even Kool-Aid, McKinstry. I feel very good about him as well. But I see Nate Wiggins there a lot. He's by far my preferred cornerback in this position. A little bit of, concern about his size, but the dude, in terms of height is premium. 6'1", 6'2". The dude in speed is premium. Was it a 4.29? I don't remember. It was a super, super fast time. And in terms of coverage, he's bonkers as well. Nate Wiggins is a bona fide cornerback 1. He could end up being CB1 in this draft, depending on your perspective of other dudes. I don't know, man. Nate Wiggins is a very safe pick here. I think in terms of what I'm looking for as our second first-round pick, depending on what we go in the first round, I think most of the time it's corner. If we trade down with the Vikings, most of the time it's going to be who's our best guy at corner, who's a good fit here. And a lot of the times I'm taking DeJean, I'm taking Wiggins, I'm taking Kool-Aid, because that's what the Chargers need. They're great fits and they're great values at 23. Nate Wiggins to me would be a huge home run here. Him and Asante Samuel, the Chargers passing D would all of a sudden take a huge step forward, and the Bolts would be very much so set to start building what Jesse Minter wants on defense in terms of his DBs. It would be a very lethal combo, especially him and Derwin James. Are you kidding me? All right, let's move here into round 2. My favorite spot in the NFL draft to trade down, and shocker, actually not going to do that this time. I'm sticking and picking because I'm seeing this dude in like 80% of drafts that I'm doing, maybe 90% of drafts I'm doing, I'm seeing this guy available in the second round of the Chargers. And if that's the case, there is almost nothing that's making me pass up on Ladd McConkey in the second round. Even if we go wide receiver in the first round, if he's still there in the second, I'd be like, dude, we'll figure it out, man. McConkey and Neighbors or McConkey and Harrison together, like that is a soup. Like all of a sudden you're thinking, my God, the Chargers, we had such huge shoes to fill with Keenan and Mike. These are two of the best guys to maybe even attempt to do that. McConkey to me is such a premium pick in the second round. If you go Bowers, especially in the first round, those two receiving options out of Georgia, monsters. McConkey is going to be one of those separation kings from this draft class. He will be available more often than not for Justin Herbert when he's in a pinch. I'm going to miss third and Keenan tremendously, but third and Bowers, third and McConkey, that would certainly exist with that combo in Los Angeles. And talking wide receiver 1, McConkey easily fits the bill for me. Sure, he's not going to be our X. He's not going to be, your prototypical wide receiver 1 where he lines up, but he will be one of the most impactful. The dude's awesome. He'll be available. He's got great talent. You got Bowers for the after the catch. You got McConkey for the immediate, conversions. It's going to be amazing to see those two together. So that's why I'm sticking and picking in round 2. Ladd McConkey is my new wide receiver 1 for the Bolts. Brock Bowers is still my receiver 1 for the Bolts. And the Chargers get a great weapon on defense as well with Nate Wiggins. So far, I'm feeling very good about the trade down. We got 2 extremely amazing offensive weapons as well as Nate Wiggins. Now let's move into the 3rd round, where, shocker, I got another trade down. Okay, 2 trade downs for the Chargers in this mock draft, but it's something I honestly would do. The Chargers, in my opinion, need to trade down in the 2nd or 3rd round. Our draft position is too valuable. We're going to get a great return no matter what we do. I think one of those 2 rounds, it has to happen. And in this mock draft B, I'm doing it. I'm doing it twice. I'm doing once in the 1st round and once in the 3rd round. And it's not going to be a crazy trade, right? We're going to trade with the Seattle Seahawks. We're going to kick us back, pick 81 and 118 in the 4th round. And they're going to be able to trade up and get whatever weapon that they're looking for Geno Smith. Okay? So in this trade down, I got the Chargers in round 3 with their pick via Seattle, taking Chris Jenkins, defensive tackle, Michigan. And yes, I think we're going to end up with at least one Michigan guy. Jenkins, Sainris still, Colson, Corum. I think one, if not more, of these guys are coming to the Chargers. And Jenkins, to me, is one of my favorite. Him and Colson, I think, it's very hard for me to say what's my favorite, but Jenkins is one of my favorite, especially in terms of value in the 3rd round. This dude would be amazing for the Chargers in the trenches. Where we had T'Vondre Sweat available to us in the 4th round last mock draft, which is a huge value. I don't know if that's the angle that the Chargers want to go. But if we can get Chris Jenkins and an extra 4th round pick, I feel very good about that trade down. I feel very good about what Chris Jenkins brings to that line. Stupid strength, a great run defense, some upside in terms of pass, rushing. It just feels like Chris Jenkins would be a great centerpiece of this defense on that line. And it fits the mold of what Jim Harbaugh likes to build in a football team. I think Chris Jenkins would be a tremendous value here, especially if the Chargers were to trade down and get some extra assets along the way. Feels very Harbaugh, feels very likely, feels very real. So a trade down with Chris Jenkins, we get, the Seattle Seahawks, we get Chris Jenkins, and I'm feeling very good all of a sudden about the defensive line, which needed a little bit of a boost. It's not too bad right now. It does need help. Poona Ford's a great signing, but I think what Chris Jenkins would bring to the now and the future is pretty exciting. So moving on, the Chargers, who now have, at this point, would it be 4 4th round or 3 4th round picks again, like we had before? With our first 4th round pick, I'm going to take another guy I found in a value. I see him there every once in a while. This is more of a guy I see like 30% of the time. But if he's there, dudes, I need to talk about this guy because I've not had the chance to very often. I'm not normally in position to draft him. He's been in this range a lot in the last week or so. Christian Mahogany. This man would be such a home run selection for the Chargers in the 4th round for so many reasons. But if you guys needed just one, this is one of the best run blocking guards in the draft. Sure, there's a lot of guys in the 2nd and 1st round that will probably outweigh him there, but in terms of value, in terms of even a guy that in terms of run blocking, he's got a 2nd round, 3rd round kind of value in my opinion. This guy would be a monster for the Chargers in this offense in particular. Played most of his snaps at right guard. That would put him and Sawyer kind of, competing for snaps out there, right? That's a great situation for the Chargers. And who knows, maybe the Chargers see Sawyer as more of a swing tackle / guard at some point. We see him and Trey Pipkins duking it out a little bit. I don't know. I feel like Christian Mahogany would be an awesome selection in the 4th round. One of those guys that I'm hoping slips to us in the 4th round. Again, I haven't had much chance to talk about him, but he would bring some crazy physicality to the position that I know Jim Harbaugh would appreciate, that Greg Roman would go bananas over. It's a dude that I haven't talked a lot about, but one that I hope to see available in the 4th round. All right. In round 4, pick 110 via the Bears. The Chargers are going to go and get Matt Gonsalves. This is the only player, spoiler alert, the only player that I have from last mock draft coming back into this mock draft. That's how strongly I feel about Matt Gonsalves. If we went Christian Mahogany and then follow it up with Matt Gonsalves, guys, the offensive line's just about there. What we wanted to do in terms of a transition to a power, balance, run balance team, these two guys swing it in such a dramatic, distance for the Chargers in that direction. It's a big deal. I think Gonsalves and Mahogany would bring some of the biggest physicality that you would hope for the team on that right side. And the Chargers would be very prepared there. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this. I talked a lot about them before. But I think still he's a great value, and it's going to be the only repeat pick between the two drafts for me. So moving on to our last fourth round pick, this time via Seattle. I'm going complete O-line in the fourth round, and this is kind of what I'm hoping the Chargers do. Grab those skill position guys in the first round or two, maybe 3 rounds, and then really hammer it out with some of the best depth I've ever seen at offensive line in the draft, with some of these guys that really stand out. Hunter Norzad, another guy that looks just like a tremendous value in the fourth round. This is a starting center in the fourth round that doesn't need to start right away for the Chargers. We got Bradley Bozeman in there. He'll carry the torch for a year or two. He'll be awesome. He'll be great for the Chargers. But Hunter Norzad has a lot of potential to be that dude as soon as next season. If called upon this season even. Like, I feel very confident in his ability to play the position. He needs a little bit of development. Everybody does. I think once Ben Herbert gets his hands on him, he'll bring that strength that I think Norzad needs to elevate himself in the NFL. But Norzad's a great selection here, I think, in the fourth round. If you have an extra fourth round pick, certainly I'm going all trenches. Third through fourth round. I feel very good about that. Defensive line in the third with Chris Jenkins. Then we're going to go Mahogany, Gonsalves, and Norzad in the fourth round. I think that feels very Jim Harbaugh. And again, a lot of people feel like it's not going to be a Harbaugh draft, or it doesn't feel very realistic if we don't go trenches in the first 2 rounds, which I think are still possible. Like, we could still very much so do that. But it doesn't take away from the fact that there's, 6 other rounds that the Chargers could do that in. And in my opinion, some of the best value you're going to find in the trenches are in rounds 3 through 4 and 5 even. You're going to find some starters lined all along, those different rounds. And I feel like the Chargers would hit on 4 very good ones back to back to back to back in rounds 3 through 4 here. And we still get guys like Bowers and Wiggins and McConkey. All right. Speaking of weapons, in round 5, here's a weapon for your defense. Love this dude. This dude doesn't get enough press. This guy doesn't get enough talk. In round 5 at 140, Marist Liufau. This dude is a hammer, a tank, a machine. I don't even know how to describe him. Yes, he's not going to be as complete as a Junior Colson, as an Edgerrin Cooper. He's going to need work in terms of his zone coverage. I think it's not as bad as a lot of guys that the Chargers have had in recent years. I think he's certainly not bad, but he needs to get better in that area. But outside of that, him and Denzel Perryman are going to knock dudes into another dimension. Oh my good golly gosh. This is one of the most physical, punishing linebackers maybe in the entire draft. This dude thrives through contact. He wants it. He wants it bad. The unspeakable crimes that were committed in Notre Dame in the name of Liufau is quite remarkable. The dude is as physical as any linebackers I've seen. And he's a guy that I would be so ecstatic to see the Chargers pick up in the 5th round. Liufau, remember the name. Hopefully he's available to the Chargers, and it's one that it fits so much in what I want Jesse Minter to turn the defense into. Hard, lean, mean hitting machine of a D. Next up in round 6, Chargers at pick 181, I'm going to take Isaac Orendo. Running back, Louisville. And this is going to be one of those shots in the dark, right? Like in the last draft, we didn't go too high at running back. I think we went Will Shipley in the 5th. I'm going to take Isaac Orendo in the 6th round for those upsides, right? The dude ran a ridiculous 40. I think it was a 4.33. The dude doesn't have a lot of tread on the tires. Probably the biggest reason why people don't talk more about him is because there's not a lot to talk about. There wasn't a huge sample size for him coming into the NFL, which leaves a lot of open interpretation here. The Chargers could feel confident in their ability to develop him, but I think the things that make him special are his speed and his size. He's 6'1", he's like 220 pounds. He's like the prototypical size for a running back. He could be something special. So yeah, I would take a risk on him in the late rounds. Him and Kamani Vital, right? Those are the 2 dudes that I feel very confident in the late, 6th and 7th rounds. But it's a guy, and it's a position right now where I don't think the Chargers need as much investment because of what they have in the roster already, and because I think the next year's draft looks really strong. So yeah, this is a guy I'm definitely taking a shot on in the 6th round. In the 7th round with our 2 picks, I'm going to go with the first one, Johnny Dixon, cornerback out of Penn State. Yes, we're going to double dip at corner once again. This is a dude that I think has a bit of upside. I feel kind of similar with him and Dean Leonard, right? I think this dude's got great versatility, maybe even more Jasir Taylor. This guy's got great versatility. He plays some slot outside. He's a great athlete. He's got really above average coverage skills as well. I was actually quite shocked to see how well he played in terms of being in the right place at the right time. His cover skills were pretty evident. But the reason that you're going to find him all the way down here is because this dude, he needs some serious work in his tackling. Some serious work. But it's something you can coach. Everything else, he's got the uncoachables. Got the speed, the size. I think he's like 6 foot, 6'1", something like that. He's like a big, nickel kind of guy. I like the project. I think this would be a great project for Jesse Minter, and I think he brings a lot to what the Chargers would need in terms of depth. I like that quite a bit. In a draft where we already have Nate Wiggins too, don't have to worry too much about, him playing on the outside as much as what he could bring to the nickel. Him and Jasir Taylor, should be able to hold that down pretty well. Then finally, in round 7, our 7th round pick, I'm going to take Trey Knox. I think the Chargers should take another tight end at some point. Trey Knox, I think he visited with the Chargers, and he's got some pretty good athleticism to him. He's got pretty good hands. Don't know much about him in terms of his blocking, but he's a dude that the Chargers wanted to talk with. It's a guy that I looked into a little bit, and it's one that, when his name came up in the 7th round, I was like, oh yeah, Trey Knox. Let's go ahead and take a flyer on him. He could be a nice project there in the 7th round as well. All right? Well, that's going to do it for me, guys. My selfish mock draft. If I were in control of the team, that's what I'm doing. Let's go ahead and do a quick recap here for you guys, girls at home. Mock draft A started off with Marvin Harrison Jr. You can go ahead and throw in Malik Neighbors there. Either or, I'm sticking a picking and taking a wide receiver. Followed up by a trade down. The Chargers in the 2nd round are going to pick up Sainra Still. In the 3rd round, Colson. The 4th round, Sweat. And a couple of 4th round picks here, Cedric Van Pran and Matt Gonsalves. When finally in the 5th round, Will Shipley, 6th round, Josh Newton, and then closed out with AJ Barner and Dylan McMahon in the 7th round. That was mock draft A. Mock draft B started off with a trade down with the Chargers, who then ended up taking Brock Bowers at 11, followed by Nate Wiggins in the 1st round. 2nd round, get a huge value in Ladd McConkey. 3rd round sees a trade down. We're going to grab Chris Jenkins, Christian Mahogany, Matt Gonsalves, and Hunter Norzad in the 4th round. In the 5th round, we could take Maris Leofau. 6th round, Isaac Rendo. And then finally, 7th round, Johnny Dixon and Trey Knox is what we're looking at. So you guys let me know in the comment section below which is your favorite mock draft A or mock draft B. If I were in control, these are the situations. And yes, I will say I will trade down if the compensation is appropriate. Okay, if the situation lines up where there's a quarterback needy team, the Cardinals took Marvin Harrison Jr., we're going to get like 2, maybe 3 first-round picks, then I'm all about it. If not, I'm sticking and picking, and I'm taking a generational wide receiver at 5. You guys let me know your thoughts on that. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. This has been The Director. If you like what you saw here, hit us up with a like and sub on your way out. We'll see you next time, and as always, bolt up and stay frosty. Let me see a Marvin Harrison Jr. at 5. Come on, let's make it simple.